Attention! Your attention, please. A vast military build-up has been reported in the Sahara Desert, sectors 17 and 18 of the war zone. 14 heavy tank divisions, supported by
There is truth, and there is untruth.
have been sighted proceeding in convoy in a northerly direction.
Freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4.
I look at the film now, it's almost primitive, because every effect in that film was done in camera. And, you know, it wasn't a big budget, and we ran out of money, and the Room 101 is just, you know, John Hurt and a wire cage with a rat in it in blackness, because we didn't have any money left to build a set, you know what I mean? But something about that that's really kind of quite wonderful, really, the simplicity of it, you know? It's funny how things work out, like, you know? We were both at film school. He was in the first year's intake. I was in the second year's after it was created. And I didn't really know him much at the film school at all. And then he asked me to work with him on doing some BBC omnibus programme work and things like that, arts programme stuff. So I shot quite a lot of films at film school. And then just gradually, after a few years, as I was shooting documentaries professionally, then, you know, other people, ex-students and Mike, started asking me to do some of the dramatic work. And then he got the chance to do this film another time, another place. So he asked me to do that. I'd always loved feature films ever since seeing these films in this little film society in Torquay, but I never imagined that I could be connected to feature films. You know, I went to art college, and that's probably what I wanted to do. But then I kind of discovered film through the National Film School.
Take your places, please. Right. Let's see which one of us can touch his toes. Right over from the hips, brothers and sisters, please. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1.
I love observing people. I love, you know, I just love that kind of recording life. That's what I like doing with a camera. So I gravitated towards documentaries. Shooting documentaries gives you a sort of sensibility of reacting to things as they happen. So, and that's quite similar even on a film set. Actors are acting and they're reacting to the script and creating a performance, and you're reacting to their performance in terms of what you do with a camera.
No. Please. You don't have to take me there. Why? There's nothing I won't confess. Nothing. I've told you everything already. I mean, what is it you want me to know? Take him instead of me. He's the thought criminal. It's him you want.
Mike wanted to shoot it on black and white. So did I. But that was just untenable. So he was determined to get something as close as he could to it. And back then, I'd heard that Keizu Miyagawa had done this process called silver tint for one of his latter films in Japan in the 60s, I think it was. But he had been a chemist before he'd become a cinematographer, so he never told anybody how he did it. And then there was sort of rumors that K's Lab said they knew that in Italy they'd done some tests with some process to make a partial black and white. As far as I know, they just did tests, and they found just taking the print and taking the bleach bath away from making the print and exposing it 50% what they would normally, you could get what was essentially a 50% black and white movie. It's interesting, you know, so most people now on film, they do it on the negative, but it's a different effect when you do it on the print. It's really striking how black the black is. It almost shines.
Hicks, Mini-Rec, Proletarian Affairs Section. Outer Party Member 22315 Howard, Mini-Prod Hospital Section. Outer Party Member 947 743 Bolgar, Mini True Records section.
I think they developed the process and we started testing quite a few weeks before we were shooting, as far as I remember. But the problem was that running it through projectors, some projectors would overheat and burst into flames. So it had a downside.
In accordance with the principles of doublethink, it does not matter if the war is not real, or when it is, that victory is not possible. The war is not meant to be won. It is meant to be continuous. The essential act of modern warfare is the destruction of the produce of human labor. A hierarchical society is only possible on the basis of poverty and ignorance.
Well, Mike had a very clear idea of the way he wanted to look, this retro feel. And, you know, we scouted just about every old building in London, I think. I actually just went walking places at weekends, and one time I was walking down the East End and came across this gasworks down there. And I mentioned it to Mike and the location manager, and that's where we shot, anyway, basically this huge abandoned gasworks that was then used by the same location manager for Stanley Kubrick's film, Full Metal Jacket. I mean, I'm really proud as time goes by, because there was no computer effects at all, no. Everything in that film was done in camera, all the big TV screens. Alexander Palace scene, you know, Victory Square. There was one time where the guy's giving a political speech and you had to see him on the screens either side behind him. And of course, it's a no-brainer, you do it blue screen. But I remember being in a production meeting one time and they were saying, well, we better do it blue screen because that's the thing. And Charlie Staples was there, and I was saying, well, Charlie, could we do it live? And then he thought that he could get some partial front projection paint. You could only shoot them at more or less front on or just slightly off axis. You couldn't go very far off axis because it was like a front projection material. So we had these two big screens and these two big towers with these great big old arc projectors, you know, carbon arc projectors to do it. And we just made enough light level too. I remember shooting totally wide open, and it wasn't very fast stock back then, so that was pretty iffy. But we managed to get that. And of course, then there was the thing about how do you sync it up? So we had to shoot the actor in the same space beforehand, process all the material, and then project it so that, and then he had to mime it to be totally in sync. Yeah, it's a no-brainer now. You would do it blue screen, or don't even need blue screen, you just insert it. But what you don't get is just the reaction of everybody being there, just the whole emotional effect of actually being there and seeing it, and the actor seeing himself as he's talking. And the latter sequence with the hanging, when the extras seeing the hanging on the screen, and they had that to react to, and the scale of it and enormity. There's intangible things that you don't get by just, oh, we'll stick the image in afterwards, you know what I mean? It's like, it's immersive for everybody that's there when you're capturing it, and it's like if you're shooting a documentary, you're in a situation, if it's a war zone or whatever, people can't get out of it. There's something real about it. It's not a fake gun going off or an explosion painted in the background, you know what I mean? I know we had 7 generators and like 7 miles of cables just to light the stairs they had to walk down to get to the set because there was no electricity because it was destroyed Alexander Palace, you know. But there was only certain parts of the wall that were structurally sound. We had to get an structural engineer in to look at it and see where I could put any lights, you know. I mean, as a piece of lighting, I hate it. I mean, believe me, but because it was in camera and these big screens, I kind of go, yeah, it was kind of impressive, but there was only certain places you could put lights, and we put scaffold platforms on the top of the walls to do it. I mean, it wasn't a production. We could get in huge cranes, and, well, nowadays you've got different lights that you could, you know, ready-made on cranes that will go up 200 feet if you want, and you can remotely operate them from the ground, and there's all that sort of thing now, but back then, I mean, you couldn't, and we didn't have the budget to do it, so it's kind of restricting in where I could put lights. The way we created the screens was anything from that to actually having a television set with a playback on it, and then Alan, the designer, put a new kind of surrounding to the screen to make it look authentic. With a scene with Richard Burton in his room, you know, the blue kind of scene with a great lush carpet and the screen behind him, that was all back projection. The trick was timing all the playback, because Richard goes to the screen and turns the picture off at one point, and it's got to go like an old television screen. But obviously it was film projection, back projected on the same time, so.
You can... Yes. You're allowed that privilege. Some more of this? It is called wine.
It's great because it was all there, and, you know, Richard walks up to the screen and you see his reflection, or you see his silhouette against the reflection of a window or something, and it's all absolutely there.
No lies. What are your true feelings towards Big Brother?
I hate him.
You must love him. It's not enough to obey him.
We even did a glass shot. A glass shot is where you put a 45 degrees piece of glass and you shoot through it. And then we got this incredible artist painted in the structure of what was, you know, the mounting for a big television screen. And then Charlie Staples, who was doing all our projection, projected this image in this space where the big screen was meant to be. So you got this huge landscape, and we had a little figure walking across the background. And he had this great big screen above him, and it's all done in camera in a very antiquated process. But yeah, I was kind of more and more kind of really pleased I got to do that, really. It was fun.
I accuse myself of the following crimes. I have seduced party members of both sexes. I've been to the proletarian areas. I deliberately contracted syphilis in order to spread the disease to my wife and other party members.
We went to Swindon because there was a structure designed by Barnes Wallis, as I remember, and we used it for one sequence because it was like being inside the rib cage of a whale or something. So I remember we went to shoot there, and we needed the Golden Country, so we used part of Salisbury Plain, which had that wonderful view with the trees on the skyline that looked like heaven. And Mike said, well, we'll build the corridor up here. And we all kind of, oh my God, yeah. So I built the corridor and you open the door. So yeah, it's all in camera. It's quite an effort to put this corridor up on this landscape, and yeah, but well, it's great. And you wouldn't do it now, it's a shame. I was really pleased to do this new transfer because that has never been right in the print, except for in the original print, because I'd shot that with like 2 correction filters, you know, an amazing amount of warm filtration on it to make everything really kind of warm, and I'd lit the interior of the corridor really cold, so the door opens and you feel this kind of real kind of, yeah, surreal landscape, really. I think probably the first day on set with John Hurt, and then when Richard Burton turned up, you go, yeah, oh wow, I never thought this would happen. I never connected my own life to what I was watching on the screen in this film society years ago, and suddenly to see the man who'd been in The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, for me, is one of the best films ever made, and then working with the same guy, it's like pretty amazing. I'm not somebody that wants to be in a tent with the director, which is where they usually are these days. I always operate, and that's partly of it, really. I like that connection. Maybe that comes from stills and documentary work. I mean, I like that relationship to the person in front of the camera, really. I like the physicality of being there, the process, and I like the connection with the actors. And, you know, I mean, I wouldn't tell a lie, I was completely nervous on 1984. I can remember it now. I mean, I'm nervous anyway when I go on a set with actors, but especially when it was Richard.
You're rotting away. That is the last man. If you're human, that is humanity. It will not last forever. You can escape from it whenever you choose. Everything depends on you.
After a day or maybe 2 days with Richard, during the day, the AD came round and said, Mr. Burton wants everybody to gather outside his trailer on wrap. And I was dead nervous, and everybody else was. So with fear and hesitation, we all gathered around his trailer, which was a tiny little caravan.
Everyone is cured sooner or later. And in the end...
Richard comes out and he said, I just want to thank you for one of the best experiences I've ever had on film. It was just so nice. He said, when I came on set and saw all those young, smiling faces, God, I was so nervous that I wasn't going to, live up to it or something. And he said, I'm so pleased to have had this experience. He said, it was just completely wonderful. And I thought, there's this guy with all this experience being nervous because we're all so young, and there are us being nervous because he's so experienced.
Only the disciplined mind can see reality, Winston. It needs an act of self-destruction, an effort of the will. Do you remember writing in your diary, freedom is the freedom to say 2 + 2 = 4?
Yes.
How many fingers am I holding up, Winston?
4.
And if the party says there are not 4, but 5, then how many?
5.
I'm sure John wouldn't mind me telling this. One time he was doing the torture sequence, and we did it again and again and again, and John was getting a little upset. I don't know, what's Mike want? So I went to ask Mike. I said, Mike, is there something specific? Because I know John's getting a bit, he's done it each and every way. And Mike said, okay, let's ask him to do it one more, because I want him to run out of ways of doing it. And it was really interesting, because he wanted to get all the acting out of John. He wanted him just dead. And it really worked.
Sometimes they're 3. Sometimes they're all of them at once. Neither the past, nor the present, nor the future exists in its own right, Winston. Reality is in the human mind.
There's a lot of rats in the film, right? So you have a production meeting and an animal wrangler comes in and Mike says, I've got to have these rats. I've got to have these rats that do this, that, and the other. And it was funny. So the guy goes out to get these rats. He comes back with these rats, and they're lab rats. They're white with pink eyes. He said, I can train these rats. We said, these are meant to be sewer rats. And it was so ridiculous. So Mike said, no, I want sewer rats. So these guys had to go and they literally scoured the sewers for rats and got with these great big rats. And it was like, whoa. And I love the film. I always have. I think it's one of the best films I've worked on, yeah. Not from my own point of view at all, just as a movie, because it's so faithful to the original material, and it's still so relevant. Somebody will make another version, and obviously it'll have different resonance in a different time, but I love the fact that that film was made, and it was made in 1984.
April the 4th, 1984. I think. To the past, or to the future, to an age when thought is free, from the age of Big Brother, from the age of the thought police, from a dead man. Greeting.